Sreet, let me know when we're ready to go. Hi, everybody, and welcome to one more enlightening and hopefully interesting discussion and masterclass by the Learning and OD Roundtable. So welcome everyone who has found the time in the middle of the week to be able to invest in two very timely, very interesting, and very enlightening conversations. We have a galaxy of stars here for you, literally. Veteran HR professionals. We've got people who are in the hot seat within organizations who have taken time off to be able to come together and share their perspectives on very topical themes, which we'll come to only shortly. For those of you joining in late and don't yet know about the Learning and OD Roundtable, I'm Dr. Sujaya Banerjee, and I'm the founder of the Learning and OD Roundtable. This is a 12-year-old forum and has been investing in, a whole host of very interesting, very timely masterclasses, leading discourses around themes that are relevant, particularly to the practitioner community. So LNOD Roundtable is actually a very large community of practice and has been helping professionals build capabilities to be able to drive change, drive innovation, drive learning inside their own organizations. Sreet, help me move this slide. I'm having a bit of a problem shifting forward. I'll quickly tell you a bit about the Learning and OD Roundtable, and we'll come to the two interesting discussions you have logged in to be able to join. The Learning OD Roundtable, like I said, is a 12-year-old forum. This is a community of practice. We have over 25,000 members. We lead a whole lot of research studies. There's one every year. This one, the one for 22-23, is called the Best Transformation Stories of Asia. And I invite you to be able to participate and share your stories post-COVID-19, your transformation stories post-COVID-19, so that the community can learn from them. We have a seminar and conference planned in 2023, and those who submit the best ideas and the best stories, we'd be excited to have you come and present them at our conference next year. But more about that on our website, which you can hopefully access to know more about our study, our independent study, which is sponsored and led by the Learning and OD Roundtable, called The Best Transformation Stories of Asia Post-COVID-19. Here is the list of people who are literally our wind below our wings, our governing council members of the Learning and OD Roundtable. I'm sure you recognize a lot of the faces here. Dr. Akhil Basrai, Ritu Anand, Adil Malia, Gautam Chenani, myself, Rajesh Kamath, Manu Badwa, Bosco De Mello, Deborah, who's also on one of our panels here today, Rajeshwar Upadhyay, and Rajesh Padmanabhan. So all very veteran, very successful practitioners, many of them consultants now, and who are basically part of defining the agenda of the Learning and OD Roundtable. The news that we have for you is what's coming up soon is an online community of practice, easily Asia's largest community of practice, which is the Learning and OD Roundtable, now going online, leading a whole host of communities of practice. Hopefully, by the time you log on to your next masterclass, you can stream it from our online platform. So this is coming soon, so watch this space for more. and make sure that you are then a member of the online community so that you don't miss any of the programs, all the studies, all the researches that the LNOD Roundtable drives so successfully every year. We have two, like I said, timely panel discussions. These are important conversations the community must have at this time, is already having. We wanted to be able to bring in different perspectives from across industries so that we make this a very rich and meaningful dialogue for you to be able to participate in by being able to use the chat, and also to be able to take away some meaningful ideas, insights, and hopefully practices, hacks perhaps in the way in which you're managing some of these challenges in your own organizations. Our two timely panel discussions are very relevant to the community right now. The first one, called Talent Mantras, Creating Stickiness for Talent Retention. We've got a whole host of very outstanding and very remarkable HR professionals who will be talking to you shortly around this. The second one's called Manifesting HR 4.0, Strategies to Reinvent HR in the New Economy. Both these very relevant dialogues given the way we've been poised. For the audiences joining in, please make sure you use the chat, ask your questions, make sure those of you joining in on LinkedIn, make your chat really vibrant, share your perspectives, share your questions, and we'll keep picking these up and see how many we can play back to this very vibrant panels, our very vibrant panelists for today. So Talent Mantras, and these are the people we're presenting on Talent Mantras. You've got Jatin Sabharwal of Tata Steel. We have Rajendra Mehta, who's making his debut with the LNOD Roundtable with this online platform today, and I'm very excited. So welcome both Jatin and Rajendra, both making their debuts with us today. Sharmishta is going to join the second panel, so we're going to skip Sharmishta and Lopamutra and instead call out Renu Bora, who will be who's already here and will be joining our panel one. Shweta Naik of Marsh McLennan, she'll be joining panel one as well. And so welcome, Shweta. Nice to have you back again. Dr. Deepak Deshpande of NetMagic Solution always has very interesting insights and perspectives. And another person making his debut here today on the LNOD Roundtable online panel is Sushil Tripathi of Boldy Solar. Sushil used to be with CRMs before and is now moved over to Boldy Solar. We're very excited. He also has somehow not been able to become part of our masterclasses in the past, and I'm really excited to be able to have him on board as an important speaker. So just a quick check to make sure that we'll stop here. Suneet, if you can stop sharing the deck and we move forward, make sure we bring in all our panelists. So I'm doing a quick check and making sure you're all unmuted and on board. And so just very quickly, ensuring we've got Rajendra Mehta, Deepak Deshpande, Renu Bora, Shweta Naik, and Jatin Sabharwal, Sushil Tripathi. So welcome all of you, and thank you ever so much for joining us here today. One more quick check for the audience. Please keep your questions and your comments going. Make the chat as vibrant as you can. I'll try and pick as much as what you're saying there when I'm talking to the panelists here today. So our very first panel is called Talent Mantras, Creating Stickiness for Talent Retention. There are tremendous forces that are changing the world of work as we know it. There is basically, there isn't a single organization that has not pivoted on the back of the upheavals of all upheavals that we've experienced in the last 2 or 3 years. And to say that our organizations remain untouched would be a fallacy, because practically there is no organization, no individual that has remained untouched with the upheavals that we've experienced. This is not new, because in a way, this is the culmination of almost an era and almost a decade of disruptions, and technology being a very significant player or influencer for these disruptions that we've experienced across organizations. I think more recently, notwithstanding, the entire move we saw in terms of human centricity becoming so center stage, people becoming so center stage. It was very easy to say you can't survive in the 21st century if you don't value your talent as much as you do your customer. And I think that became really prominent to at least to most organizations in the last couple of years. Having said that, what we saw was a very unique phenomena in the last couple of months, where 2022 has been earmarked with, um, with a whole host of either the great resignation, the quiet quitting, whole host of people basically leaving the workforce, leaving their jobs. Some of them deciding to even leave the workforce and to be able to reinvent themselves, reinvent their careers, to basically take a pause. And for lots of people, particularly in India, while the Great Resignation has had its own hues and its own colors in the West, in India it's been largely about people wanting to just having a change of scenario, wanting to move to organizations perhaps where they have a chance to start again, where they feel less burnt out, and where they have an opportunity to be able to perhaps reinvent and start enjoying work again. So it's difficult to be able to recap that as, any single set of reasons on why it is that the quiet quitting or the great resignation really occurred. It's just been different things for different folks, really. But in India, it's not been so much about leaving to not do anything or to just kind of restate their purpose or their purpose or their life's missions and so on, which is how it's been described in the West. In India, most people moved on to be able to join different jobs or to be able to maybe move on to entrepreneurship or some new opportunity that they hadn't yet experienced before. I'm going to try and get you people in, and I'll start with perhaps getting in Shweta to be able to respond first, which is what are your own reflections, lessons learned around what you all saw at MMC? I'm sure you saw, you're equally impacted with the resignations. Were you surprised? If yes, what are your lessons learned? How are you dealing with it at Marsh McLennan?
Thanks, Sujaya. So if anything, I think this is the right topic and the right forum, because I think all of us have seen the whole cycle when it started in 2019, and 2 years down the line, we now have seen everything we could have probably seen, and we're still unraveling the future, right? I think if anything, the pandemic has resulted in reformation in all areas of life. It's like the quitting trend is just not quitting. People are switching jobs, industries, moving from traditional to non-traditional roles, retiring early, starting their own businesses. I think they're taking time out to tend to their own personal lives and maybe embarking on sabbaticals, because that's high time now. They want to kind of slow down. The great resignation or the attrition has become the great renegotiation, if I have to call it that way. Observing some industry trends and listening into several of the exit feedback, I could say the simplest push to attrition has been the enormous digital transformation boom that we saw, especially in India, over the last 2 years. I think due to cost pressures, especially global companies where you have presence in US, UK, EU, Asia Pacific countries, they've been forced to look outside of their own geographies. And India has a large, massive talent pool. So that's one of the reasons why a lot of hiring is picking up in India. That's what we have seen in Marsh McLennan, where a lot of the companies who have presence outside of India are now offshoring these roles back to India. I think one of the other reasons is all companies want to hire the top talent, which is also sought by everyone else. So hence the crunch and the hiring needs are both mammoth. Whether it's technocrats, simple operational analysts, digital architects, you name it, the story remains the same. Secondly, I think the shift is also moving from remote working to probably, what is people calling it as a flexible hybrid working model. That has opened up unprecedented opportunities. I think with all of that, people are in the best space to pick and choose the kind of roles that they want to do, personalize it, look at more work-life balance. I think that's really, really creating the shift in what we are seeing as, the talent exodus, I would say that. Okay. Does that help, Dr. Sujaya?
Yeah, it does. I'm just saying that, I can see that you're not very perturbed. You're saying, basically saying that some of these jobs are coming back to India. These will create more opportunities for people. So there will be basically, as a result, an exodus of people. I'm also hearing you say that, people wanted to reinvent themselves, and it's fine. And there's a top layer of talent which will always have multiple opportunities. So it's okay to have this flux. I'm getting a sense that It's natural, it's all right, and organizations are coping with it. I'm going to move this forward to to perhaps ask Dr. Deepak Deshpande, and this is going to be one question I'm going to ask every panelist to be able to respond to. I'll request you to keep it brief, but I'm going to want to try and get your perspective. So, A, were you surprised? B, what is the lesson learned? What do you think is your lesson learned as an organization? If you were surprised, even if you weren't, then two, what is the lesson learned? Because could you have done something? What are organizations thinking, or how are they reacting to what they believe are the triggers for this perhaps unprecedented spate of people moving out of their jobs and perhaps seeking other pastures? So, Dr. Deepak Deshpande, I'm going to pass this over to you.
That's a long list of questions. I'm so glad you said the context right, Dr. Sujaya, and followed by Shweta. I think she covered most of the important aspects, right? Coming back to the questions that you asked, are you surprised? Well, there was no time to be surprised. Every day was a series of surprises, one after another. Too many challenges to deal with. And the best part was, after about 6 to 7 months, we realized that, oh my goodness, we have survived for 6 to 7, 9 months, and the business is doing well. I think it isn't hurt us that badly as we expected. But then the worst was to come after a few more months. Having said that, I think when I look in hindsight, what I see is a lot has changed in the last 2 years. I mean, especially post-COVID, too many things have changed, which we never anticipated, right? In that sense, that one simple reason itself is prompting us, I think, I'm sure every HR professional or leader that be, the so-called legacy issues and traditional methods of talent acquisition or retention to create stickiness, right? And this definition itself and the canvas has changed so drastically that the old methods will no longer be relevant. While we have the experience and the luck of having implemented so many changes in our decade-long experience, but the 2 years has suddenly put a question mark: will it work here? What do I do differently? So that way, we had the opportunity to rely on the old and the experience of survived the 2.5 years that we did, right? And how and beautifully, I think people really responded, right? So my response to that would be purely consider the new changes that have happened, because the dynamics have changed so much. So therefore, we need to look at, I mean, that could be the answer. What could be the triggers, or what can we do? If we look at today's employee, he is working from any time. He's working anytime from anywhere, using any device, So from that perspective, that the base foundation has changed. Two more points I'd like to add. The focus today, the business managers and the department heads or the business leaders expecting, the focus is more on output rather than have you just tick mark 1, 2, 3. They're looking at the results, right? And employees expected to create his own career ladder. Hitherto, I think it was all training, I'll make your career plan and blah, blah, blah. Now it is not the case. So I am giving you the tools and the facilities and ABCDs. Now you figure out, right? These are the opportunities you have. And also the employees are getting an opportunity to get customized work. Employees are encouraged to share information. Today, there's more of reliance on collaborative and adaptive technologies. It's more of a democratized learning and teaching, to people. So in that way, we have opportunity to become leaders. Every employee, organizations are expecting. Therefore, people's expectations of this, they want to move fast, they want to grow. Therefore, organizations really need to see what opportunities are they presenting to the employees to create that stickiness. I think it's opened up a whole lot of possibilities. So I'm very, very positive on that note.
All right. Okay, great. You're saying that, as a result of this, organizations basically stopped taking employees for granted. There are no more mechanisms to be able to drive collaboration. There are more mechanisms to be able to create, basically, an environment where you can plan your own career and where the employer is interested in being able to support you with your aspirations and so on. So you're seeing a positive outcome from this. I'm going to move this over to Renu. So Renu, what is your take? Yeah. So very quickly, were you surprised? What is lesson learned?
Thanks for inviting, first of all, and good to hear so many stalwarts. The names are reflecting on the screen, so looking forward to this. So I would say that the context was, the question is that did it come as a surprise? Yes, it was a surprise. For 2 years, we were each one of us as an organization unit, we're fighting against pandemic and ensuring that the business remains, the continuity is there in the organization. And then you hear this wave of resignation. So in my organization, we do not have the big wave of resignation, but we know that it's there in many organizations. So quiet quitting came as a surprise to all of us. And this came as a new buzzword also. We also heard that some of them, so as you rightly said, Dr. Sujaya, that there's no one single reason, but there should be at least 3 or 4 themes emerging. And we are still in that phase where I cannot say that this is one key reason, but yes, purpose of life, definitely people did think about it. And it did impact some of them. And also that organization suddenly, sadly, they did not learn much. Not all organizations, but many organizations did not learn much. And they just thought that, post-pandemic, let's come to pre-pandemic working hours. No, you have to come to pre-pandemic working hours in terms of ethos. But things definitely have changed, and you have to look for new ways of working, because the consumer behavior changes, even the employee behavior has changed, and you cannot make them, just work them like 9 to 5 and say that you have to again fight every day with the traffic and come to office because you want to see your face and so on. So that kind of learning, I think organizations should imbibe somewhere. And there were some pockets in most organizations, in many organizations, where there was some toxic work culture had seeped in those 2 years, and because for various reasons, but that is a fact that what I have observed and heard from people. And then, as and when employees got a chance, it was like quid pro quo. And so, why it happened? Why sudden this wave of resignation? It also was from the organization point of view that many growth plans were put on hold in the pandemic, and now they were opened up. So there was a big need. So while I may think that I need to have a new purpose, I may think that my manager is very toxic, but I may not have any place to leave. But then after pandemic, things opened up, and then I thought, let me leave, and that was one of the reasons. But it also became a good I'm to say chance or opportunity for people to renegotiate. As Shweta said, the people renegotiated because you have to bring employee at the center. I think all this great resignation is a demand or cry from employees that, people centricity is the most important thing. What I may want at this age, at this stage of my career is, please listen to me, and I'm there to give my career a boost, but work with me, kind of thing. So employee centricity, I would say, is now at the core.
Right. Okay. Well said. I'm going to move this over to Rajendra Mehta, and I want to try and get his reaction on this. Sunit, if you can help him unmute. I think he was having some challenge with unmuting. So we have you on the. Can you?
Yeah, now I'm there. Yes.
Yes. All right. Lovely. So, what is your perspective? Yeah. Were you surprised as an organization with what you saw in terms of the challenging situation most organizations saw themselves in, with talent leaving, in an unprecedented way? And the second part is, what were the lessons learned? What is it that the organization is doing differently or planning to do differently now?
Sure. So thank you, Sajja, for having me. It's a privilege to be part of this panel discussion. My belief is that, even we during the COVID, peak, we also thought through, what's in it for us in life, and what kind of a place that our work must have in our lives. So I think we also thought about, certain things about our career, our life, what are we living for. So those are the kind of conversations that we also had, within ourselves as well. My sense is that, probably two things emerged. One, that majority of us probably thought that there are certain things which are probably very essential for us in life. One, the purpose that probably that we need to align ourselves with, or there's a compensation that probably for my work, the contribution that I do, what the organizations must pay back. Apart from that, my understanding is that because of this sheer COVID impact, the amount of digital interventions that most of the functions and businesses had, the need for talent, whether it was on supply chain, whether it was on digital ways of working, the sheer demand and supply mismatches typically happened. Right. And because of which, I think organizations, for their own priorities of that they want to drive businesses to a certain perspectives, the sheer demand and supply gaps happened, and therefore that compensation, whether it was getting paid exorbitantly by other business competitors, or that my need to go to a remote place and work out of those geographies, and I wanted to do a very balanced work-life balance. I wanted to ensure that. So I think multiple of these reasons actually played out in terms of this whole Great Resignations. Right. We are back to a steady state almost, and I think that was a spurt that we saw over last year or so. My sense is with a steady state that we go to, these scenarios would also taper down to a large extent. The learnings, out of this is, that like the other panelists are saying, that employees became the center stage. What we are also currently doing is trying to really hear, listen, probably recognize, reward, have more communication. So creating more stickiness with everything that is possible around. That's what we're trying and drive that across. Right. So I think it was a surprise that we saw a lot of these changes were happening and people were getting plethora of options. But we were also wanting to ensure that our key talent is, more spoken to. They are held back for whatever reasons, stay in conversations. So all of that we started doing to ensure that people stayed put. Now, there would certainly be some losses or, loss of talent, but that's part of the game. Right. So nurturing our own internal people, that's the journey that we went ahead with.
Okay. All right, super. So, we ran a poll which over 400 people responded to on LinkedIn. And I just wanted to have that up. Sunit, if you can help me with the slide so that we can share this with everyone who's part of this conversation. So we have a question that we asked, basically, and over 400 people on LinkedIn responded to this. We asked, what do you think are the triggers for the Great Resignation? And here's what we really got. And we done a couple of focus group discussions earlier, and we boiled down to 4 options. LinkedIn also allows you to only ask 4 options. So therefore, here are the 4 that seem to be most prominent in the focus group discussion that we put out. So we asked, was it poor boss management? Was it toxic cultures? Was it poor compensation? Or was it not feeling valued? And so what got them to be able to leave, or what do they believe is the reason why people are leaving? And here's what we got. We got about 22%, which is like 1/5, saying that it was because of poor boss management. Staggering almost 50% saying toxic cultures. Poor compensation, which basically almost anyone we've talked to said that the reason they left was because they wanted more money. They wanted to feel more valued. The feel more valued is at 20%, which is like 1/5, but poor compensation has been about 10%. So it appears sum total, this seems to be, the triggers appear to be, and this has just been basically randomly responded to by people on LinkedIn, is about a 50% saying toxic cultures, and 1/5 of the group that responded basically saying it was because of poor boss management. So sum total, if you were to look at this, it would be almost 72%, a very staggering number. Almost 70% believe that the triggers are to do with the immediate manager and the culture. Can you come back to the group, Sunit? And I just want to get a reaction from practically any of the panelists. I mean, we've not yet got in Jatin and Sushil, but as much if Rajendra wants to come in, Shweta wants to come in, what's your reaction to what we just shared right now? Rajendra, do you want to react to this at all? Is it simple? I think you're on mute. Oh, I think you're on mute, Rajendra. Oh, you're unable to unmute. Okay. All right, Sunit, you want to
Yeah,
help?
now I can. Now I'm there. So I think I agree with the kind of responses that the survey shows. It is largely what happens is we end up blaming the bosses in terms of the kind of the learnings that we have is that employee doesn't leave the organization, employee leaves the bosses. I think it's probably overdone to my mind. I think there are multiple areas which also impact employees movement, and more of these are the toxic culture, opportunity of being able to play a larger role, being aligned to a larger vision, developmental journey that the organization takes. I think absence of many of other parameters also contribute to the exits and attrition reasons. I agree.
Right.
So I generally agree with the survey results that I'm seeing.
Okay. All right. I'm going to pull in Jatin because we haven't heard you yet. So, Jatin, are you ready to be able to come in? I know he got tied up with something, but if you are there, would love to have you come in at this point. Jatin Sabharwal, would you be able to come in? Deepak, do you want to respond to this? What I just put up here.
I am actually not surprised. And
Okay.
when I look back, prior to COVID also, when a similar survey had been conducted, we would similar trends we might have seen. It is so very, very strange that while the reasons are valid, I wouldn't say they're not valid. But what has contributed to feel this so overwhelmingly is that during the COVID, everybody was so stressed. There is a pressure on the business leaders to perform and function. People are going through a lot of emotional stress, right? And in that process, I am sure people were not so compassionate and understanding and as supportive as they should have been or would have been in a normal situation. So this is like a double whammy. It hits you hard, right? That is one. And then our friend said about people have tendency to blame bosses, which is true. Compensation. I think the ratio and the trend that we have seen is fine, absolutely not surprising. But the triggers to cause that itself is much more beyond the triggers. The triggers are standard triggers. So I would leave it at that.
Okay. All
I
right.
would add here that, more than looking at the triggers, because the triggers are the same which were there for when Gallup did a study saying that, majority of us are disengaged, there are those were big studies and they were like very thought-provoking.
Not valued, yeah.
Yeah. So, but then I think more than going into the triggers, I think we should see that, if toxic culture is 49%, how, and we are all contributing, I'm to say almost all corporates are contributing to the toxic culture. What do we do about it? How do we ensure that, we do something around it? Because we also know that during the pandemic time, there were organizations, there were big stories about most of the corporates, how people have been taken care of, not only through wellness, but overall in a bigger canvas of well-being. So, so that also is a fact. It is not a story. I'm to say it's not a fiction.
Yeah.
So, how do we? And also, as Shweta said, that it became a renegotiation kind of thing. And I would say my experience has been when we renegotiate, we are renegotiating on the role, but also it boils down to salary. And poor comp is coming as 10%. So,
that was the reason why I put it out here, because it's all points for reflection, because what we think we understand, we may not have understood completely, which is the point that we actually try to
I think Dr. Jasujaya, if I can just take 15 more seconds, I completely relate with that point on the toxic environment, and possibly because I think where we are missing a trick is that employers today continue to rely on traditional levers like, giving money, looking at titles, the promotions, etc. But people have moved, and this probably would be for baby boomers who probably would like to have a good pay package. But if you look at the millennials and the Gen Z, they are interested in looking at well-being. Am I getting micromanaged? Do I have the flexibility? So these are things that probably the employers and many of us in HR are not able to get it right. Sometimes it also leads to tracking mechanism. Now a lot of companies are looking at, let's track how many hours the person puts in. These things do put off, and that's why the toxic culture, that I gave you my full support as long as I was working, but when I work from home, you're trying to put in tracking devices, you're controlling my life. So all of that, I think it's kind of contributing to this as well.
There's one point. I was just
Yeah.
with a startup guy who has built up a very nice, a very large organization. It's already 1.5 billion USD valuation. I was asking him, does a work from home or a hybrid, kind of a work scenarios work for you? He says it doesn't work for me. And he's also a Gen Z kind of, guy. He's very young. He says, culture of the organization doesn't get built up. I need to see people. Now, I think we're all trying to test out what really, goes well with our setup.
Yeah.
And, so we'll have to be mindful of what action we take and what information base we have on top of which we take these actions.
Yeah, so true. Sunil, can you bring in the data point we have? We asked these questions to a set of CHROs, and I have something which I thought I could kind of share, especially in the context of what Rajendra just brought in, which is to do with, yeah. So we asked a question which was, does work from home and other flexibilities, while these have increased, do they basically make it difficult to manage employee experience? And we have a 57% saying yes, can't manage employee experience if you're working from home, which is to the point that Rajendra just made. And we also asked the key custodians of employee experience is the immediate manager who needs to play the connector role better. We asked whether does the immediate manager need to play the connector role better, and we got like a staggering yes, a 95% saying that while we transition to work from home, everyone playing that role for the first time, no blames here. It's more to do with did not manage to be able to or could easily improve the way in which we're actually managing experience for employees. Just go back to the chat, Sunit, to the conversation discussion that we're having here. I want to move this over to Sushil, who's not yet come into the conversation. And so, Sushil, what do you think? What's your sense? Do you believe that work from home erodes employee experience, to Rajendra's point?
Sujay, I will share my experience on the basis of first-hand experience which I had in my previous company. Because when I was there, so sometimes I was acting on behalf of management, and then I got also victim. I should not use this word, but I really experienced how this COVID or maybe the impact of coronavirus impacted on overall employees. March 2020, I was managing approximately more than 4,000 of workforce. And then I was part of reducing due to business exigency, and till November, numbers were reduced up to just 300 people. And at that time, I was thinking, okay, this is not going to impact me. I'm a kind of person who takes a call and then it is implemented. And when I realized now things are not in line with my thought process, I got a shocker from the management, Mr. Tripathi, it seems that the cost and the business sustainability which we are visualizing in future doesn't support this kind of cost we can bear. So now you can take your own call. So that was a kind of complete shock for me, because for more than 9-10 years, I was at the helm of the affairs. I was taking a call and business was implementing. Then I realized what I missed out. And because you had started with this question, what was your learning? What were your reflections out of this pandemic? So from there only I'm starting, and then we'll come to the work from home experience. Because 8-9 months, I experienced work from home practices and what management adopted or followed that time, how it has impacted post-COVID. Now organization has become stabilized, they are progressing, but ultimately employees are now leaving. People who were there at that time with the company, now they are leaving. So the real output or outcome which now company is facing it has culminated due to the efforts or initiatives or the processes which they followed during that 8 or 10 months of COVID time. So what I feel, employees during those tough time were expecting a lot from the management or from any of the company. The trigger points which we are discussing from different perspectives, these are not new to us. Talent retention has been a perennial issue, and these triggering points were always there. Cultural issues, boss, how you are treated in the organization, fair practices, compensation, it had been there. But during tough time, which kind of experience, how you were treated by your management, whether there was someone who can tell you, boss, I'm with you. Because we were surprised. We never had experience that this kind of things can happen, particularly apparel retail sector. It was completely into lull situation. We were even not able to see for how many months or years this is going to happen. Because I still remember when the day of first it was declared across the country, we with our chairman declared to all the staff, boss, we are with you. For any kind of support, we are there with you. But in just 3 months of time, suddenly we started talking, our existing resources are not enough to take care of you people. We are going to take a call to cut your privileges, perks, benefits, health issues. A lot of related issues started suddenly emerging on the front. Then people started realizing, oh, company was telling something, bosses were telling something, we are there to take care of you, but now there is authenticity issues. What we talk, what we were telling to our people, from ground level, it started disappearing. So a kind of compassion, empathy, we can talk each words beautifully. Management, people, leaders, even CHROs, and even I had been discussing these things, but I was knowing what is happening, what management is thinking. They were just trying to cut the head count. And then now when things are improving, people are getting opportunity. So those experience they are having, and now they are feeling these are the people when time were tough, they treated very bad with us. So now we have to teach them a lesson. So that was a learning. So from shock, self-realization, I have become more human. I realized, boss, you can be at the helm of the affairs, but time has more power. So at one point of time, you can be at the bottom of the pyramid. So that is the self-realization. And most importantly, work from home, you see, workforce, workplace, and then work. Entire our everything has got changed during these times. So technology has started or had started taking predominance over everything. Unfortunately, HR, human resource, human relations, we had forgotten the core essence ki why we are there. Business is just related with two things, business and human. So human aspects were missing from, maybe I would not say posted Dave Ulrich or whatever concept, strategic HR partner, business HR partner. So what were happening, everything were happening at the cost of human. So now again, time has proven ki boss, humans are the asset. They have to be taken care of if you want to create your business on sustainable model. So that has been my overall experience.
Right,
Doc,
right.
Doc.
So, I'm just going to say, Sushil, that, I think it's amazing, you've basically spoken from the heart, and, while what you've said is may not be the truth for many organizations, and hopefully there have been some who've managed to be able to basically manage this adversity with more compassion. I really appreciate you bringing forth the fact that many did not live up to the promise, did not really manage what they said, or weren't authentic in the way in which they could eventually live up to the promises made to employees. So thank you for being able to bring
Yeah,
in
one
that
more
perspective.
thing. See, one more thing. So whenever something happens in IT, ITS, it is unfortunate for HR fraternity. They always run after ki, okay, great resignation happened in US, UK, European countries. We started discussing about great resignation. But if you see the Indian companies, how they are operating, people are still struggling to get a job. So that is the harsh reality. So sometimes I think whatever I said, it is not related with just one company.
Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah,
have read
I appreciate
article, so I can count name of so many companies. So they didn't fulfill their promises. So that is the only summary.
I did really, really value you bringing in this discordant perspective, because normally we'd like to gloss over to be able to say work from home worked perfectly well. It was all fantastic. We still maintained our productivity. We did still maintained everyone's treated their employees so beautifully well. And you've brought in the other perspective, and I really value that, because these conversations become meaningful for reflection if we also bring in perspectives on where it is that we still have more work to do. So thank you for raising that, and thank you for bringing in that perspective. I'm just mindful of time, and I'm mindful of the value that I have in terms of so many of you there. There's Sumiksha Suri who's raised her hand. Do you want to use the chat in the interest of time and put down your questions or your comments? I'm happy to read them out to people. And anyone else who wants to be able to raise a question, raise a comment, if you want to say anything about the discourse that's ongoing right now, please feel free to be able to do that. I think we've got a question which is coming from the group, which is logged in from LinkedIn. And there is someone who's asking, how do we define a toxic culture? Are there certain parameters we can check on to understand if an organization is toxic? Or is this just a perception? So anyone wants to attempt here on the group before we try and move on to the last question? So I don't know if Rajendra wants to give this a shot. Shweta, do you want to give it a shot? There's someone from the audience asking, how do you define a toxic culture?
Toxic culture, I would make an attempt. Toxic for different, in a different way to different people. But I think there are fundamental things. I would harp on purely fairness, compassionate, transparency, consistency, and respect. Right? I think these are very important. If it is not showing, it's only in your policy book and not in your conduct or behavior, it will add to that. And of course, I think there's a lot of other things like envy, jealousy. What kind of culture are you promoting in the organization? These things will add up to that.
Yeah, I think I can build on this, what Dr. Deepak just mentioned. For us, I think an organization which is empowering its managers, it's empowering its colleagues, providing a lot of empathy when they are dealing with personal issues, making sure that you're building in proper accountability. I think if those things are taken care of, you can avoid getting into a toxic culture. The toxic culture starts when trust breaks down, there's no transparency, there's no communication. The point that just Mr. Tripathi just mentioned, where you are not walking the talk, you're saying something, you're meaning something, and you're doing something. I think that overall kind of, mitigates the whole piece what we talk about, and it builds on that toxicity in the organization. The culture is kind of completely taken off.
And I can just add here that, yes, fairness and credibility and respect are very important pillars of toxic, of a good culture, which are primarily driven by the manager or the management. But even employees or colleagues do play a very good role, because they talk about toxic culture and not toxic manager, which means camaraderie plays a very important role. Do I have a shoulder to, rely on? And at times what I've seen is that even fellow colleagues in some organization, they don't take up that responsibility of standing standing out. Like, for example, what happens in the case of sexual harassment? If you're traveling in a bus and you can see somebody being harassed, you are also a passenger, but you need to call out. You need to stand up and not just wait for police to arrive. Similarly, I think a culture in which even your fellow colleagues stand for you is so important. Yeah,
good point. I'm just going to still get Rajendra Mehta in here. What is your own sense of what is a toxic culture?
Yeah, I think, the very well, captured points by Deepak, Shweta. And so my belief is that, the trust, I think we build organization and the organization deliver results through people. And I think it's a social structure that gets created internally in the organization, and that eventually leads to the outcome, the delivery of results, etc. And I think when that breaks down, and if that bonhomie doesn't exist, or the relationship trust between each other, that I can depend on my colleague to for supporting in case of I'm going wrong. I think if that trust breaks down, my sense is the toxicity just increases.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So I think good points raised by everyone, and I think there's so much of acceptance in this conversation from where we started. So I must congratulate the panelists for doing that, because I think there's so much reflection and acceptance that has happened just in this conversation in the last 45 minutes. I'm going to try and close this conversation with the last question, which is, you're all such experienced people, you're managing talent every day, day in, day out. Do you want to share with the participants of this masterclass one hack, your favorite hack on being able to influence retention within the organization? What do you recommend? One hack, one idea from each one of you. If you can give us more than one, will be fabulous. But tell us the one which you believe actually works. So we want to start with Dr. Deepak. Yeah,
Yes.
Share with the audience at least one hack for retention.
Yeah, I think number one is, instead of career ladder, we must look for career lattice, where the growth to every employee is not only vertical, it is horizontal, it is diagonal, it can go in every direction. So people can see there are a lot of opportunities. So we need to create a culture where we are open to people wanting to do something new, and they have the facility or the enablement to get trained and acquire those skills. That's number one. Number two is great working relationships. I think somebody mentioned about at the workplace, like camaraderie. I think I heard somebody of my fellow panelists talking about that. Renuji mentioned. And third most important, I think today people are looking at ethical behavior within the organization, right? And the practice of the organization, plus how much the company is caring for the community. These two things definitely going beyond the obvious. I think these are the three things I would think are majorly influencing a person's decision to be, is it a right place, nice place, good place? I don't mind a little less money or little hard time, 2 hours more work, but I would love to work here. हम घर छोड़ के नहीं जाते हैं, right? So one more thing I would like to add. People need, I think we need to, it's time to not just talk about the employee loyalty, company loyalty also we need to see. That's where company loyalty, and that will come only when we accept that business is not for charity, it is there for profit, people, human. I think we should never forget that. And then, if organization can coach not only how to be financially sound, how to be spiritually ready to accept these challenges in life, it will go a long way in creating a community within the organization itself. Sorry,
Good
that
point.
was a long answer.
No, but very good points. You've raised career. You've spoken about whether the organization has a conscience, and does it have a commitment to society, some form of altruism, compassion that the organization basically shows. You spoke about camaraderie, which is so important in terms of being able to experience a culture where people care, or where somebody will stand up, like Renu said, for you. Yeah, so good point. Very good points.
Thank you.
Shweta, do you want to go next?
I think sorry, I'll make it short, Dr. Sujay, but I want to really bring this up in terms of one of the hacks that we employed while looking at all our attrition trends. I think Marsh McLennan saw a lot of attrition in the early tenure, which is 0 to 12 months. And that's when we figured out that something was not working. We were providing all the benefits, we're doing all the hybrid working model, everything possible, but the trends was typically highly prevalent in the 0 to 12 months, which is when we thought that possibly this is because of the remote onboarding, people were not seeing their managers. And essentially, we thought that there is something that we needed to do, and that really worked, which is basically making sure the new hire onboarding training happens in office. If you have an option to bring them into the office in the first 30, 60 days, do that because that creates a lot of sense of belonging for the people. They've never seen the workplace, so they don't know what it means working in an organization, workplace culture. That's only possible when you come into the office. Secondly, I was talking to one of the new hires in my connects, and he or she, whoever mentioned that, the person said, where I could have just turned around in my desk and asked for help, I was exchanging multiple emails where my learning went for a toss. I think that's where we understood the problem was to bring them into the organization. I just thought that we should share it here in this group.
A very good point, because you're talking about the opportunity of peer learning, and that especially with new employees, if they haven't seen the office, haven't experienced the culture, and they don't have the opportunity to also learn from their colleagues. And I think these are very can become very significant triggers for not wanting to stay.
So one more
thank
point.
you for bringing this up. Yes.
So Sujay, I think, one of my colleagues,
I'm very interested to know your hacks.
So one of my
colleagues
colleague actually got a job with one of the finest organizations in Bangalore, and it's actually a world-class organization. But she chose not to go because from the time of the hiring that happened and till the time of onboarding, there was no connect. When she was writing mails and she was asking for certain clarifications, the system was so institutionalized that it had to go through a certain structured process only. So there was no human intervention in that whole phase. She chose not to join that organization because it did not seem like a humane, connect. So I think connecting with people on and off, celebrating small successes, celebrations, I think all of that matters a lot at this point in time, I guess.
Sujay, I wanted to come for a minute if possible.
Okay, all right.
So okay, I think as we are trying...
This is the advantage of two panels. Yeah, we've got a panelist popping into yours. Yeah, so come in, Adil.
So as I hear a lot of intelligent panelists out here talking about their decoding of the script and the narratives that they are talking about, I think the greater challenge is to understand what is the challenge. And that is number one, is it about intolerance? Is it about realization? Or is it about expectation? Because number one is it about intolerance in terms of I am no longer in a mood to tolerate the old culture, I am in a new situation? Is that the challenge that organizations facing? Or the second is, oh God, I realized that this whole Vasudeva Kutumba kind of a storyline that was given was just shallow, and that my realization during the moments of adversity was that this organization doesn't support me at all, so why should I continue to do what I'm doing? Or the third is the expectation that is in the new reality, I'm not willing to tolerate the old situations because new options are opening out. So whether it is about intolerance, it is about realization, or is it about expectation?
Well said. I think thanks for recapping it, because that's what the conversations from different perspectives really were about largely. So thank you for doing that, Adil. I'm just wondering on the hack. Yeah, I don't want to miss anyone on the hack. So Sheil, one hack before we close out. Yeah, hack for retention. I can't begin to tell all of you how invaluable this is. This is constantly what organizations are looking for, and I'm hoping those who are on this conversation today on this masterclass are taking copious notes on this. So Sushil, your favorite hack for retention?
So only one success mantra which I have experienced in my more than 2 decades of experience: never sell organization, rather describe your organization. Okay. So instead of selling your organization, describe the situation as it is. Then it is pretty sure you are going to attract right kind of talent. So that had been my success mantra. So whatever we lies, that only I share with the people. In the very first beginning, I never tell ki, boss, we are going to offer a kind of Jannat, जहां ना गम होगा ना आंसू होगा, और that kind of song, आ चल के तुझे मैं लेके चलूं एक ऐसे गगन के तले जहां गम भी ना हो आंसू भी ना हो बस प्यार ही प्यार पले. I describe like we are a kind of army. We expect this kind of person only, and if you are okay with this, then come and join us. So that had been my success mantra.
All right, great stuff, which is don't exaggerate, don't overpromise and underdeliver, say it as it is. I think this has been an absolutely wonderful panel. Join me in being able to clap for them, many of them making their debut.
I think, yeah, Sujaya, so you have missed me out. So I would just add one thing from my side is that, For me, the retention hack is about listening and demonstrated caring, which means that, we have been talking about internal hiring and, internal talent in the organization a lot. We do a lot of IJPs, and then people apply and we only select one of them. Do we really care to give feedback to the others? That is what is listening and caring, so that we build up their career. We tell them, just by saying that you have not been selected is not a feedback. So what they can do to, reach to the next level of their career, and so on.
Or prepare for the next time, so that they don't give up on their careers with the organization.
So caring at every point in time, like caring for every touch point. How do you bring caring into action, and not just by saying caring as a term?
Yeah, so well said. Yeah, very, very well said. Thank you for coming in and bringing in that point on both listening and on caring. I think Nathan wants to come in here. Please come in.
Just 3 words. Just three words. My hack is connect, develop, care. That's all. And as long as you are authentic about it, people forget anything. They will come and they will stay with you. And I'm not saying this, you got to do this because people are going to stay with you.
Yeah.
Do this because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, so well said. Thank you for saying that. That's a nice recap, because all the 3 pointers you brought up are actually in different ways. People on the conversation actually brought that up as well. So thank you so much. And I'm so glad that everyone resonates with these hacks, and these are coming out of so many years of experience and insights. And this is a real treat for the audience. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Nathan and Adil, for being able to pop in here. Jatin, I know you've been on a call, so I'm going to try and involve you in panel discussion too. I'm sure with your very rich experience, you'll be able to come in anyway. So one more round of applause for everyone who's been on panel 1. This has just been fantastic. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for sharing this. This is obviously an area of huge pain point and challenge for the community as we speak. So thank you for coming in and sharing your own perspectives. There's some really great revelations there, Sushil. So thank you for being able to raise that and having the courage to talk about everything we're not doing enough, other than what all we could actually do. So great stuff there. With that, we move to the next panel discussion, but not without being able to thank our sponsors for this masterclass. So this masterclass is brought to you by Refine. Refine is India's first and Asia's largest salary on demand platform. I'm sure some of you already know about them or are already engaged in conversations with them. But I think it's fabulous of them to be able to support the community and so many of these conversations that we've been having, including the CHRO roundtables that we did both in Mumbai and in Delhi. So thank you, Refine, for being able to enable this. And I think with that, let's move to the second panel discussion. Thank you, all the panelists. This has been wonderful. If you do stay back for the second panel, we've got veterans, very experienced thought leaders who are also joining the second panel. So I'm going to ask you to stay back so that you can come in with your perspectives and also share and keep our chat really active and rich. So with that, we move to the second panel discussion, and this time we're going to be talking about manifesting HR 4.0, strategies to reinvent HR in the new economy. So to help us, discuss this theme, we've got, Adil Malia. He's already been here. He also came in to share some very rich perspectives on panel 1. We have Deborah Hume, who's the founder of Minerva Engagement and the Neuro Leader Academy. She's joining us from the UK. So thank you very much, Deborah, for your commitment and for being here. SV Nathan, partner and CTO of Deloitte. Anirudh Kekle of Executive VP and Head HR of CG Power and Industrial Solutions Limited. We've got Chandar Thapar of the CHRO of Hiranandani. And we've got Sunit Kadmishra joined us already. And we've got Kaushik here, which we're really excited. Kaushik Chakravarti is here, Chief People Officer of Savills India. Thank you for joining us here today. And I'm just wondering, do we have Geeta on board? Okay, if she's here. Okay, great stuff. Geeta George, EVP HR of HDFC Bank. Geeta, great to have you back after so long. So you may want to unmute and say hi to everyone, because we basically missed having, you can't unmute. Okay, Sunit, help her become co-host so she can unmute. All right. So welcome one more time, Geeta. Great to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And my name reads as G6365. That's my employee code. This is an official laptop.
Okay.
Thank you, Sujaya, so much for having me.
Okay. All right. Lovely. So I think with that, let's get going with panel 2. Like I said, manifesting HR 4.0, strategies to reinvent HR in the new economy. And I think when we talk about the opportunities and the multitude of possibilities that these times have really offered, we've constantly spoken about reinventing the organization, reinventing the business model, pivoting the business model, relooking at the way in which we want to be able to run the organization. These times of upheavals have sent everyone running to the drawing board to be able to relook at how they want to recast, revamp their organization, their structures, their businesses, look at new opportunities that they can bring in, new territories, new markets, all of that. And so many organizations took this opportunity to be able to implement Industry 4.0, which is particularly has been, adopted by manufacturing organizations the world over, but great opportunity for change and change management at this time. And so when we're talking about Industry 4.0 and being right in the middle of Industry 4.0, the question to ask is, how well did we use this opportunity to be able to manifest HR 4.0? Do we know what we're talking about when we talk about HR 4.0? What has that really meant across different organizations and different industries? So I'm going to start at the start. Maybe I'm going to direct the first question to Nathan, and I'm going to ask you, what does 4.0 really mean? If you can try and explain this in the context of HR to the audience. And of course, we'll get more people to augment your responses from the panel. But help the audience make sense. What are we talking about when we're talking about HR 4.0 at this time?
Okay, in my limited understanding, I believe that the generation today that is working in human resources are really looking in the context of anything to do with purpose, what's the social impact that is happening, and what is our response to what the business needs. And as somebody so nicely said in the previous in the previous panel, about how you have a business on one side, you have people on the other, and how do you marry it? Because there has been a lot of tumultuous change. First, you have technology, which is a big disruptor. We've got people looking for a certain talent experience. And again, this came out in the previous example where somebody said, I'm not joining because I don't have a great talent experience. And then you would want people to be empowered because now you have millennials and zillennials, you have generations working in the same organization. You have digital all around and people wanting to be heard. So you put all this in the mix, you're really looking at a complete, not just a evolution, but a revolution of what is happening right today. Now, 4.0 is a response to what is happening to Industry 4.0. So these are some of the pointers, and of course, it's a whole plethora of work that is now having to be done just to address what can we do as in response to what 4.0 industry is wanting of us. It could be a pretty long answer, but I'm just trying to make it as crisp as I can.
Yeah, no, but well said. And I'm going to move this over to Deborah. Deborah, do you want to kind of bring in a perspective here on what would HR 4.0 really account for? What would that really mean? And I'm just trying to do some meaning making before we get down to what you require within organizations to be able to reinvent HR. All right, Deborah, I think you're on mute. So you're going to have to unmute.
I'm off mute now. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. For me, this is a really fascinating topic, and I think we're at a real turning point in terms of how we think about our organizations and how we think about our organizations in relation to our people. So instead of perhaps organizing people around work, which is what we've been doing actually for quite a long period of time, I think we're getting to a point where we're looking at how we organize work around people. So people are becoming and are right at the very center of our organizations. So what do I mean by that, and what does that mean for HR? Well, as technology develops and as quite a lot of the labor-intensive activities of HR start to move away, and as we get some headspace to think more strategically, I think we can really, and this is where I think it's really important. I think we can really start to think very deeply about how we are engaging our people, what that means for how we not just communicate with them, but how we lead them, how we onboard them, and actually think in a different way. So for example, if we look at COVID, and if we look at the pandemic and the way that that drove the shift, the rapid shift within sometimes a week from everybody working in the office to being able to work with tools that, let's face it, had been available for some time for flexible working, but organizations perhaps weren't quite in the space to allow it in the scale that we had to allow it with COVID. Now that we're coming back, I think there has been an adjustment. So yes, as individuals, we've had time to think about what we want our lives to be and how we want to work. There's also a big shift and change going on socially and environmentally. There's also, which I think is fascinating and it's not talked about a lot, there's also the fact that lives are extending. So it's not unheard of that we're going to live to 100. It's not unheard of that people born now will live to 122. So what therefore does that mean for our organizations? Because the traditional school work retirement isn't going to exist anymore. It might be that I want to come to work for 2 years, then you need to retrain me. I might want to go to university when I'm 40. I might want to take 2 years out to travel, because I'm not going to retire at 60 if I'm going to live to 122. So for me, all of these things are converging right now. And if we make use of the technology to create some space, to take away the mundane activity, to create some space so we can really think very deeply about how, instead of thinking about a workforce as one workforce with sort of audience shifts, if you like, in the middle, we're actually dealing now with individuals on an individual basis, and each individual will decide how they want to present with our organization, and we're going to have to accommodate that. So in a team, you might have somebody who says, I only want to work 3 days a week. You might have somebody who says, I want to come in 5 days a week. You might have somebody who says, I can work 1 week off and 2 weeks on. Now, if we're in the situation where there's bags of talent around, then we can afford to sit there and say we're not doing that. But if we're looking for the best talent, and the best talent is creating wants to create a very diverse, different type of life, then we'll need to accommodate it. And for me, that's where this 4.0 and the possibility that technology brings to be able to manage that data and being able to deal with people individually will really come into the fore. So I don't know whether that answered your question.
Oh, yes, it is. Yes. I mean, I'm glad you brought in the 100-year life perspective, because that is what is redefining work and workplaces and individuals. And thank you for also bringing up leading the workforce of one, where you need to be able to customize what it is that you want to do around people. And there's no more the one size fits all kind of perspective. Let me at this stage bring in Adil. Adil, industry 4.0. What is HR 4.0 and how do you see it manifest within organizations?
So Sujaya, the idea that the HR systems in an organization need to be in sync with the business systems is not a new idea at all. And therefore, the two have to be constantly in a kind of synchronity is a reality if you really want to get results out of it. Now, when we are talking about business 4.0, we are talking about the fourth generational revolution and the industrial revolution. So when we were talking about, say, for example, business 1.0, we were talking about the coming in of mechanizations. We were talking about water, steam, power, and the HR systems required to be able to do these first time transition into these kind of generations. The second was about the mass production and how HR was supposed to be keeping in touch, and how are they supposed to motivate people to be able to create that in a mass production situation. The third generation that was coming in was that of computers, data, information, etc., and how the HR systems had to cope. Now, the business 4.0 is talking about integration of human biographics along with the new wave digital technology. So if that is what business 4.0 is meaning about how to create integration about the human biographics along with digital technology, then naturally, what is the life cycle of HR an organization needs to be having to be able to support the business initiatives where the two technologies, the digital technology and the human biographics, create a kind of a common pathway. So if you were to ask me, what is business, what is HR 4.0? I would say it means turbocharging your HR system to be able to help the business arrive at this. So it is the coming together of esoteric human skills like persuasion, empathy, influence, emotional connectivity, and the other human biographics on the one hand, with the digital aid technologies which are bringing about change, which is to say, number one, the Internet of Things, the big data analytics, the design thinking reality, the artificial intelligence, the blockchain realities, the augmented reality, the machine learning, and the robotics. So on the one end, there are these 8 technologies which are causing a digital revolution. On the other end, these digital revolutions are not going to succeed till the human biographics of persuasion, empathy, influence, and touch are intertwined into the two. So how the HR life cycles are able to use technology and the human biographics is what HR 4.0 is about. And so I feel, at least.
Right. So thank you for helping make sense of that for the audience. I'm going to, at this point, bring in 2 practitioners and ask them how they're seeing this basically pan out, how they're seeing this basically manifest inside organizations. So I'm going to pull in Karmishra Mitra, and she's also making a debut on our LNOD Roundtable Forum for the first time. So Karmishra, welcome. And my question to you is, we're talking about reinventing, revamping HR and manifesting HR 4.0. What parts of this are you already seeing unfold within the Access environment? What is your own perspective of what you're seeing around you? So it can be as much Access, as much what it is that you're seeing, how you're seeing HR getting revamped, especially on the back of all the upheavals we've seen in the last 3 years.
Thanks for asking that question. I was listening to all our esteemed panelists before this, Sujaya, and I am, traveling in my car, just finished, as you know, one of the conferences, etc. And lots have been getting discussed there as well. So, in my experience, the biggest shift is, for HR is we always wanted, as they say, a seat at the table. That may have started happening many, many years back. We are bringing conversations, we are bringing discussions to the table. But for the first time, I see HR is now calling to impact very high order business things like productivity. Today we are at the heart of integrating various parts of the business organizations and really driving the productivity agenda. Who thought about it many years back? Also, the bank specifically, we are driving the agenda of risk and compliance culture. Right? Just one sec, I'll request you to stop somewhere. So, yeah. So the risk and compliance culture, the regulatory compliance, everyone thought it's not an HR agenda, but today it is. The third area, where we see ourselves, and I heard they'll talk about it as well, the whole technology space. Now, there our role is a little twofold. So one is, so for example, financial services industry is growing in a very big way. As we call it, the tripod of fintech and crypto and DeFi, coming together. So how do you really get leaders be more aligned to these new realities, right? The responsibilities on us to make them aware and drive strategies, and then, educate them further, convert them into actioning and make it happen. And the fourth large agenda so that's one part of the technology change. And the other part of the technology change is organizations like ours who are, knowledge industry, IT organizations, and I see some bit of it happening in manufacturing also. We are actually integrating information from CRM, from analytics, from HR information, and really understanding what makes the individual tick as a whole, right from experience to hiring to learning to really productivity, that whole value chain.
Yes.
We are integrating. So that's a very, very important piece. Finally, the other big change that I see along with shaping the future and other things that I talked about is also driving the sustainability agenda, the well-being, the DI. So great time for HR. Everything that matters, we are there. So I see these big shifts where right from productivity to well-being, if you see two ends of the spectrum and everything else in between. That's how HR has evolved today. It's a reality.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing this. This is full of optimism and positive spirit and huge opportunities for HR, the way Commissioner from Axis Bank articulates this. I'm going to move this over to Jatin from Tata Steel. I'm hoping you're going to be able to come in now, Jatin. And I want you to be able to tell me, how are you seeing this manifesto unfold around you? You work for a very prominent group and organization. What are you seeing unfold around you? Does this resonate? This is HR's time. This is HR's opportunity to be able to contribute on various agendas, which otherwise didn't seem to include HR in a prominent way. So your response to that? Do we have Jatin? Sunit, has he dropped off? Okay, I'm going to pull in Anirudh here. So, Anirudh, what is your sense? Yeah, react to what Commissioner just shared. How are you seeing HR reinvent, revamp within organizations?
Okay, so I think I'll just take one step back and say that, okay, how are we actually evolving as a function, and what are the processes, that we are running? And I think Adil has beautifully kind of articulated and conveyed that how we have. I'll just talk about a different angle to that. Let's say, maybe 30, 40 years back, organization, decision making, communication, interaction, knowledge transfer, everything was essentially human to human interaction. That is how, this entire communication will happen across the organization. As we moved along, I think we brought in machine in between because people wanted to talk across, the boundaries, geographies, places. So we got, machines in different forms, let's say whether it was telephone or whether it was computer, whatever it is, right? So we brought machine in between and the interaction was, more seamless. And then the time has changed. And now we are in a place where machine is kind of telling us what we are supposed to do, what we are supposed to decide, what we are supposed to look at. And then we communicate that to another machine, as a human being, and that machine is perhaps communicating with another human being. So it's kind of, machine has become a part, of our interaction process. And I'll bring it to the organization level, trying to bring it slowly to that level.
Sure.
And then machine to machine interaction is also happening, and human beings are more observing all of that, what is happening. And that to me is more of, mixture of both industry 4.0 as well as HR 4.0. Now, when we are trying to build the entire system, machine learning, artificial intelligence, machine talking to machine, making decisions, correcting things, stopping things, from processing something. I think the human element when we are trying to bring into all of this, there are two implications that I see very clearly. I'm carefully not going about, digitization or hybrid and all of that. But that's still a very less percentage according to me, because I come from manufacturing and we have 18, 19 manufacturing facilities. So very less percentage really bothered about, hybrid and this and that and connectivity. Large percentage is still on shop floor. And they are going to see a huge transformation coming in their, respective workplaces. So to me, there are two implications. One is that the organization structure itself, and traditionally we have been defining organization around how we want our business model to be, But I think now the organization structures are evolving and will continue to evolve around the skill set, around the jobs, that are required, around the functions that needs to be performed, not departments I'm talking about. I think there is a huge implication and there is a huge opportunity for HR to come in and look at, okay, how can we really integrate this, using the technology? Not just, being organization design or organization model expert, but how can we bring in technology? This is how you will connect, right? I think COVID has really gave us that confidence that you can be anywhere. We really don't need to know somebody's, vacationing somewhere and somebody's in a, village, but you are able to integrate teams with those technology, and you're able to kind of move organizations, process and action forward. I think that's a great, contribution by HR. The second is skills, and for example, in a traditional manufacturing line, if you're talking about bringing in, let us say, an element of automation. I'm not even going into AI, but just automation, and trying to integrate the entire supply chain, including the vendor, their what you call it as, minimum balance quantity, everything. I think operators now need to be trained to use system as opposed to calling supervisor and reporting, right? And I think that's a huge change on the ground. On the other hand, again, COVID has taught us, but even beyond COVID, there are organizations which have kind of moved on to this, that, why do you want to go on a refinery or on a field to fix something or to check something? So there are platforms which have evolved where there are digital twins. You have a replica of your customer's refinery in your, so-called control center. You can virtually go there, see what's happening there and fix the problem or guide the team. And I think to integrate that skill set, that is another, implication on HR as far as the 4.0 concerned. And in all of this, the human, element. Now, while we are connecting, virtually, how do we really make sure that the connect stays? And I'm not using big words like engagement, but that will happen if it has to happen. Quite frankly, earlier conversation I was listening, very interesting, on retention. I don't think people are really worried about long term anymore. They're only worried about, am I feeling good about with this organization or not, here and now, and they know that they can find opportunities. So the point is that how do we really, use technology to stay connected, and to an extent where we don't even notice that there is technology which is connecting us. I'm sitting at my home, I kind of rush, somebody's taking this call from car, somebody's in office. Seamlessly we are connected because we are not anymore, kind of sensitive about the setting that you are in. We are seamlessly connected. I think that's another opportunity for HR as far as, industry 4.0 is, HR 4.0 is concerned. I think lastly, again, my favorite topic, for the HR people also, quite frankly, when all of this was happening, employee engagement to employee experience and all of that, somewhere, I think there was a need for HR people to pay an attention to how well we really represent the organization. And I really like what I think Sushil said, right? You have to really demonstrate the true value of the organization, right? What do we really stand for? What we are, what we want to be known for, right? And I think if that is attractive enough for people, they will come. Now, how do you demonstrate that and continue to demonstrate that moving forward? That's another, important thing, because HR people, they are also, kind of remotely connected. So the touch and feel is kind of gone. So how do you still, be there and person can, sense your vibes and you being there for them and you are being an ambassador, for the core values of the company. I think it's a mixture of 3-4 things that I talked about. Lot is going on in my mind, but I thought that's something which is more.
No, I like what you said, because, while on one hand, you're talking about the opportunities with technology and the connectivity that you can actually create using technology, you're also directing towards going down to the basics, which is, are we being able to play our connector role as HR well? And that's gotten accentuated, especially as we try and get people to work remote or hybrid or whatever the formats might really be. So good points. I think I want to move this over to Geeta George, and I'm going to try and ask her to be able to come in here. So Geeta, give us your perspective on what revamping HR has meant. What have you experienced? What kind of dynamics are you seeing unfold, especially in the context of the recent upheavals?
Thank you very much, Jaya. I'm happy to be on this panel. I can see many names and people I know. So thank you again. And I'll talk some of it in the general context and some of it in the context of the bank. Two things that define HR 4.0, I would say, is technology and data. And from that point of view, it will redefine everything that HR has known to be what the function does to what the function will do in the future. So, and it is changing in ways that we are not able to fathom now. We can make our guesses and we will put frameworks around it, but this is changing on the go. All of us are learning on the go. There are no established frameworks out there. And we just have to take this experimentally every day as it comes, try something, do something, it works, great, try something else, that kind of thing. So data and technology will define what we will do in the space. And from that point of view, I think all of us here are fortunate to be in HR at this point in time. I don't think in the last 50 years, we have experienced as much change as we will experience in the last 3-4 years and going forward, maybe in the next 5-10 years. We have an opportunity to redefine what the function will do, what the function means in the life of the employee and in the life of the organization. So I think it is a momentous time for HR to be in the center stage in many ways, because employees and all of us, and I mean us as employees, we are also redefining what work means to us. Loyalties are getting redefined. Employer-employee relationships are getting redefined. So we understand work as somebody working with an organization. You have a working contract, you sign an employment contract. That is now getting challenged. Okay, well, for instance, there was a whole discussion on moonlight, right? And there were two sides of the story and very forcefully presented sides of the story. Where today you really, 5 years back, not even 5 years, 2 years back also, if somebody has asked this question, there would have been a clear moral stand on moonlighting. Today, there is no moral stand on moonlighting, right? So the whole conversation around what work contracts mean, what organization structures mean, what policies and generalized policies mean, because we want to do fair, we will use the same policy for all. That basic principle of HR is getting challenged. That it is not one policy fits all. You probably need to have 1,000 different policies for groups of people to fit into that. So everything we knew as we knew it is getting redefined. And from that point of view, therefore, I would say, and I need to I need to ask pardon of many people in this team. We have 30 years or more of experience in HR. I'm not so sure experience is going to be an advantage. I think if experience is given the wisdom to open minds and keep wider perspectives, then it is an advantage. Because there are so many things that will get thrown at us that is new and completely contrary to what we thought was right in HR. So I think this is the generic my thinking on the subject. More from the bank point of view, we have staggering scale in terms of number of employees. We are close to about 150,000 employees across 6,000 locations. And therefore, a lot of things that we do, while it may work for small groups of people, we have to think scale all the time. And the only way it can reach the last mile is if I use technology, in real time. So for us, everything is about designing a concept. I use data because data is good for us. Anything that I do, we have 20, 30, 40,000 people responding to something. So I have very good data to work with. So I look at the data, I design a solution, I use technology to implement it, and very quickly I get to know. And technology advantage is the response is very quick. So I get to know very quickly whether something has worked, not worked, and what therefore can be tweaked, etc. So I think that's the way we are trying to experiment with a few things. Intentional inclusion is a theme that we are working very hard at, because we believe that that is intrinsic to fairness and equity as younger employees experience it. Maybe many of us lived with differential treatments and biases even when we looked at it in the face, but now that's not true. right? Now people have a voice and they are not afraid to voice it. And as an organization, we have the responsibility to give a platform for everybody to be themselves when they come to work. And we need to have a social impact. I think organizations that exist for only profit will get challenged at some point. And so one of our bigger themes is the bank playing an important role in the financial inclusion as India grows and becomes the third largest economy very soon. And people participating, our employees being participants in the journey is an important mission that they are buying into. So with that, I can go on, but
no, I think you've raised some very, very relevant points and very meaningful ones. And I must say that I mean, just listening to all the points that you really raised right now, which is, for example, experience is not going to count for a lot. They're very provocative ideas. I'm just wondering, while it seems to be indicating in that direction, to what is the pace of change that one is actually experiencing within organizations around some of these things? For instance, leading the workforce of one and not having a one-size-fits-all strategy. I'm just going to try and turn this over to how ready or prepared we are really for all the change that we're actually talking about. Maybe I'll try and bring in Adil here. Adil, what's your own sense here? You had some very strong views around moonlighting. So I'm just going to try and ask you to first respond to what is your sense on preparedness. While these are all strong indicators of change, what is your sense on preparedness within organizations to be able to manage this? And then please do respond on moonlighting. You had some very significant pointers ahead when we were chatting, so I want you to be able to bring that forth. So Adil, over to you.
So number one is, of course, that, as things keep changing, organizations need to be in a constant state of change. Now, there's no great brain logic to explain this point to you. Now, my question is that certain realities are brand new realities that the world is experiencing. Whilst on the one hand, we have experienced Mohenjo-daro organizational practices in metaverse organizations. So they are living in an organization which is a metaverse reality. And at the same time, whilst the businesses are in that reality, the HR practices are practically out of the Mohenjo-daro civilization. So the two are not really working together. Now, the question is, are we prepared? No, some organizations are prepared. The real challenge is, do organizations need to prepare themselves for that? Again, that's a no-brainer, because unless and until there is a synchronity between where the business is going and where your practices should provide an enabling environment, of course, it's absolutely necessary. But I believe that most of the organizations are not ready. Most of the HR managers are not even ready or even aware of what the real business 4.0 challenge is all about. Therefore, they have not worked it out. Now, what is real common and important is that your life cycle of HR processes will continue to remain the same. Like I've always said, that your get, give, grow, guard, guide, govern, galvanize, germinate, all your HR processes will continue to life cycle wise be there, depending on what kind of a business process you want to follow and the digitizational requirements that you are in. You will have to keep modify yourself for that. So I think businesses are not ready for 4.0. HR is far from ready for that. And therefore that reality is the truth. And we have to prepare the organization to fit the gap in.
Right. Okay, I'm going to move this over to Kaushik. Kaushik, what is your own sense? I mean, react to some of the pointers you've already heard. I particularly want you to react to two very provocative statements that, Geeta just made. One about... basically experience is not going to count for much. And the second one being that there is no morality issue around moonlighting. So try and respond to both of these for me.
All right. So on the first one, I think, experience is not going to count, but other area that was highlighted by, I think, Deborah, where she said that, lifespan is going to increase. So, you will have, I think the biggest challenge today is, earlier, people used to talk about, 40 is the new 60, but today everybody is talking of 60 is the new 40. So that's the other challenge. Where you have experienced people, but they are today at a stage of their life cycle. Where you need to be seen as an organization, as a workplace, accommodating them as much as you accommodate a Gen Z or a Zilalian or whatever you call it. Okay, so for example, as an organization, one of the key D&I agenda that we have, okay, is we take a lot of pride in the fact that if there is an assembly of employees, staff in a room, we'd love to see 4 to 5 generations together. Okay, so I think that's the world we want to see in. So experience count in the sense, yes, as HR, it's a changing world, as rightly pointed out by Adil. I mean, there is no question on the fact that the world is changing around us, and an HR need to be agile, need to be seen as taking the right action at the right time. And we have seen enough of it, and we can go on talking about the Black Swan event. I mean, the very fact that people have stopped talking about VUCA, everybody is talking of the new Barney world. I mean, so we are seeing that shift which is happening. Yes. Experience will count in terms of how you have seen many such challenges in last 20, 25 years. There's a lot which this world has gone through. Okay, so I think, in many ways that will count. But yes, when it comes to embracing, I mean, rightly pointed out, HR 4.0 is all about the 4th industrial revolution. And when we talk about the 4th industrial revolution, we talk about robotics, AI, Internet of Things, quantum computing. So you need to be seen as an organization which is embracing all of it. So, experience is not going to only help in that process. Naturally, there has to be a lot more into it. There has to be people who need to come in and thinking very differently, embracing that particular world. One more thing I think which is very important, which we need to understand, and somewhere where we are getting into the moonlighting world, which is, there is more to what, anybody is looking at from their organization. They're looking at a space. The space, when you're talking about space, there has to be a space where people should feel that they can contribute more to their larger goals in life, which is more to do with, people have questions around CSR and around that, right in the beginning, at the time of joining, what are your CSR policies? Things like that, which I have not heard of 7-8 years back.
Right.
Morality around moonlighting, yes, that's a new world. You want to see a lot of flexibility. And if today we know, for that matter, everybody talks about Apple as an organization, how it has emerged into what they have emerged. Now, one of the key reasons is the flexibility, the open, the operating system that they followed, where the apps played a major role. Now, the apps were developed by what are the people who developed these apps? They are the cutting edge technology people, who are there to create an app for a couple of months and go out for a hike, come back and, join into a new project. And these are the people, who actually created, one of the finest organization in the world. Now, what is it all about? It's a thin line of getting into that moonlighting world. So I think, morality, as rightly pointed out, the morality around this subject has seen a seesaw battle, which we couldn't have thought of, 7-8 years back. That's the changing world. I think, HR need to look at many of it. And the other thing is, very interestingly, how are we countering some of these aspects? The Factories Act of 1948 was the core, whatever, the legal reason which was being given around opposing, moonlighting. So you have Victorian era, laws which is guiding you. I think there is a lot of changes which need to also happen around some of the legal framework, the labor laws. I think we'll have to change with times and make a lot of things more acceptable, okay, to legally, in the way we operate. I think that's the new world, and we need to be, HR need to be seen embracing this new world much faster than it is doing currently.
Right. Well said. I think I'm going to move this over to Chandar in just a bit, but I'm just tempted to call out something that Adam Grant said around the side hustles. And what he's really saying is that employers shouldn't discourage side hustles or hesitate to hire people who have them. The data he's referring to is that after engaging evenings on their side gigs, people perform better the next day in their full-time jobs. Side hustles aren't a distraction. They're a source of energy and empowerment. So I want Chandar to respond to this. What's your own sense around moonlighting, since that's such a hot theme right now?
First of all, very thankful to you for giving me an opportunity to be a panel member. In terms of the challenges of recruitment or resignation or moonlighting, where a person works one point of time in the morning at this shift at one place and second in the second shift somewhere else. I think the genesis of all this goes back 40 years, 50 years back. I remember a movie called Mughal-e-Azam. It was being produced in the year 1950 or 1945, and it took 20 years for that movie to get produced. There was a gentleman by the name Asif. He was, if I'm not wrong, he was the director of the movie, and a very eccentric person in terms of the passion or the work to be done. Even 50 years back, when we talk about the industry HR 4.0, what exactly we have to focus is not on the challenges, but what are the solutions. So there are two lessons which we have to learn from this movie, Mughal-e-Azam. Asif wanted to have a song sung by senior Ghulam Ali. And senior Ghulam Ali was being asked to sing a song in that movie, and there was a person called Naushad Ali. And he was being told that please make this gentleman Ghulam Ali sing for me in my movie. Ghulam Ali said that I don't sing songs in movie, I do only in plays. Then Naushad played a role of a catalyst, and he brought the gentleman to his house and he said, no, you know, I don't sing song for movies. So he was eccentric and he wanted to get that work done even 50 years back. What I'm driving you all people to understand the passion. So he said that, okay, as you have come down to my house, so to very softly and diplomatically say no, that point of time, he said that I'll charge you 50,000 bucks. During that time, if you give 500 rupees to a singer, he'll sing you for the whole song or any number of songs for the whole year. Now, this gentleman, Asif, was very more towards the job in terms of meticulous and making the things best. He said, okay, he pulled out 10,000 bucks from his pocket and kept it on the table and said that this is the initial money, in the balance I'll give you to in Mumbai. This gentleman got a little bit, it was a surprise that how he's able to give. But he said that, okay, so he sung that song in Mughal-e-Azam 50 years back, free of cost. So what is driving us for us to understand? Challenges were there that time, challenges are there at this point of time. What is the solution? How we are able to find out a solution? And that comes only because of passion. Now, I was listening to one, and the second part of element of the story, what we have to learn from this concept or this movie was, there was a gentleman who played the role of Akbar in that movie was Prithviraj Kapoor. In that movie, the whole shot of that one particular shot was done, and Prithviraj Kapoor came back to Asif and said, you gave me a shoe which is worth 5,000 rupees or 4,000 rupees 50 years back, and you have shot me, the entire scene is above my waist. My shoe is not being seen. So he mentioned that I had given you that shoe of 4,000 rupees and you are playing the role of Akbar. Do you have that sort of a feeling? Do you feel that you are Akbar? He said, yes, I had a feeling. But that's the price what we have paid for the shoe. So again, we are driving to understand that in today's corporate world, do we have passion? Do we have the purpose which is being defined for me to get things done? Challenges are there that time, challenges are there today. Now, I was listening to one interview by Kapil Dev. He was conducting one session with co-members from his fraternity. And he was mentioning that in IPL, everybody is telling, I have a lot of pressure. I have a lot of pressure. So he said that if you have pressure, the game is of pleasure. So pressure and pleasure don't go hand in hand. So in our times, when we were in school, we were getting one slap on the face for us to even ask a simple question. So concept, what I'm driving again is that if I ask this question to people that you get, somebody rightly said that we are getting connected. The digital world is making us connected. Now, if you ask a question to ourselves, I got maximum slaps from my mom or from my dad. The answer would be the more slaps I got during my school time was again from my mom, because she first gets connected and then corrects. Maybe in the case of father, he only corrects and maybe connection is there or not, but the concern is very high. So what we are driving is that whether we get connected in a digital world or 50 years back, I think what is being missed out or what is being to be learned, that is there a concern? Is the purpose defined? Now, Mahatma Gandhi was not the first person who was thrown out of the train and he realized his purpose. And many people are thrown out without ticket. They are not able to find out the purpose. I think it's the element of the passion what we have, that what in Hindi we call janoon. that junoon is there. So if we have that sort of a junoon in us, I think possibly things will work out. So it's irrespective of moonlighting is a different concept. I'm talking about the industry 4.0. So I think are people open to change? So according to me, there are 4 phases of change. If you change before the change happens to you, maybe you can lead. If the change happens during the change, you may prosper. If you change after the change, possibly you may survive. And if you don't change even after the change has happened, well, you may die. Maybe the best example would be Nokia, that they could not accept or adopt the Android. So again, the next question is that whether I am open happily to make changes happen. I think this concept of ability and opportunity, they attract each other. So if ability is not been honed, and then opportunity will not come. And if abilities are honed, then opportunities are bound to be there. Now, I think what is really required for us, some gentleman has made a mention that about machine learning or artificial intelligence. I think this Google, Mother Google, what we call, is not a search engine. It's the answer engine. Now the question comes, if Google is giving me answers, the quality of question is going to determine my life. What we speak about the experience. So it's Google is not a search engine. According to me, it's an answer engine. So do we really have the right and apt befitting questions of today's challenges? So who is going to give me the question? Algorithm is going to give me an answer. Google is going to give me the answer. But who's going to give me the questions? And the right question is going to determine the quality of my life. So are we open for that sort of a algorithm system where you have the right questions? So it's rightly been said that if you don't scale up in whatever life, in whatever walk of life, maybe you will get sidetracked. So there is there's a beautiful Hindi shairi which says, "Subah hoti hai, sham hoti hai, zindagi yun hi tamam hoti hai." Unless and until you do a purposeful job, possibly you won't be able to survive. So knocks and failures are always there in life. But today the skills are very fungible. Now the glass full or glass empty is not the concern. Concern is fillable. Whether there is a competency or there is a scope for glass to be filled up. So I think purpose is to propel any organization, and people are there. So concern for people, whether we want a motherly organization which is concerned or a fatherly organization which may not be, concern is there, but connectivity is there, but correctness is. So correctness, many times it is not required for us to have the challenges being corrected. The system itself should get corrected. So I personally feel that organizations which are motherly driven, when the mother treats the child, it's a concern which is not being told, but it's been seen. So I think if that fusion is there, if that amalgamation is there, organizations will definitely make things happen in a very positive way. So whether it's 2.0, 30 years, 40 years back, our basic constitution of my system is the same. That won't change. For example, in the body, whether how it was functioning 40 years back or now, it's more or less the same. We have evolved. I think in last one of your slide, you mentioned that 39% of toxic culture which drives an organization to fall. I think culture is well defined. It's more of it's evolving like a brain. You can't say that I have changed the culture in 3 months. That's only possible if there's a surgery. Otherwise, culture is it's getting developed maybe 30, 40 years. So like Hiranandani company in which I'm working, I think it's a beautiful culture what we have. And it's evolved a period of time. So challenges were there yesterday, challenges are there today. I think rightly been said that can we survive without challenges? If it's a routine, I don't enjoy. For example, 15 years back, nobody used to eat pizza or Maggie or anything were not available. We want diversity, we want change, we want flavor. Are we open for? If I am sitting on this chair since last 2 hours and 30 people are sitting with me, I would be wanting to make ergonomics demands that I should move myself and move. But I will be concerned of what he or she will say. So I think the change has to be brought in such a way that it's making me comfortable. And I think it's been rightly said that it has to happen. So accept it and move. I think that's what I had to put.
All right. Okay, thank you. I think that was really, it was a longish answer, but I did not interrupt you because you're bringing in many interesting perspectives and you're sharing them in a very interesting way. You spoke about mindsets, you spoke about intentionality, you spoke about, basically the fact that, change has been constant. And I like the shairi that you brought in as well. And I think on that note, I want to be able to bring in, I think, Nathan wanted to come in to be able to say something. So Nathan, can I
I also wanted to put a
Yeah,
point.
no, one second. Just wait. Yeah, we're short of
Fine.
time. So just wait a bit. Yeah, Nathan, do you want to come in?
I'll keep this very brief. I'm not going to take the 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I'll keep it really brief.
Yeah.
One, I think, first of all, I must declare that I have a different title in my office. It is Chief Talent and Purpose Officer. And it's a very important thing that we do in organizations. And organizations, particularly ours, for example, is a 177-year-old organization. It's pretty. It's a very, very. So unless you have a purpose which is beyond profits,
yes,
this is completely a no-no. If I look at what we should be doing as HR professionals, I think it's just a few things beyond just letting people know what is the real purpose of an organization and get the people to feel it. For example, the amount of investment that we make in ESG, even in the world of consulting, is tremendous.
Right.
But the four things I want to talk about is, I think as HR professionals, we must be live, alive. We must be around the place.
Yes.
Because only something which is alive will be able to stoke passion, and just not yourself, but people around.
Yeah.
I think we have to learn.
Yeah.
So the point that was being made about experience, and I have a point about it.
Yeah.
If you do the same thing again and again and then say that I've got 30 years of work experience, I think you just have 1 year of work experience repeated 30 times over.
Yeah.
But if you keep learning all the time, and if you're in touch, then I would say that experience would certainly count. The third one is listening.
Yeah.
And listening is not the kind of the ones that we always wish to hear. It is listen to the unsaid, that which is not said in the room, unkahi.
Yeah.
That which is not said. I think it's important to understand what is being done in organizations.
Yeah, but
The
so
last
powerful
one
is, I think learning is the number one skill you require in the 21st century. So thank you for bringing
the last
that up.
one that I think we need as HR professionals is, you have to absolutely love what you do or just get out of the way. If you didn't have that passion yourself, you won't be able to drive it. I will take 30 seconds on moonlighting.
Yeah. We'll be short of time, so I'll ask you to keep it brief. Yeah, we still have to.
Very brief. You don't even have to tell me this.
Yeah.
As a consulting firm, number one consulting firm in the world, we do not believe in moonlighting. Because it would be a big threat to all our clients to know that there is somebody doing on the side. So we will not. However, within an organization, the point which is missed is people do moonlighting because they have some other interest. Can we stop that? So we like to look at innovation within an organization that will get people there. The gigs that people do outside, can we promote gigs inside? And that is what organizations need to be driving towards. Those are my few words. Thank you. Bye.
Good point. Thank you so much, Nathan. I think that we had one more hand raised. I'm just wondering, Anirudh wanted to come in. Anirudh, keep it really brief. And we do our last round robins with everyone. Yeah.
I'll really keep it extremely quick. I think largely I agree with what Kaushik said, and very thoughtful, very articulative, very to the point. And I'll make a quick comment on I think moonlighting. What Nathan said is absolutely correct. You know, it depends on what is your business model, you know, what is your business philosophy, what do you want to drive. I think I as a HR professional, the way I look at it, as rather than worrying about, you know, morality, ethical, right, wrong, I think that this is an opportunity. I would not look at it as a challenge. This is an opportunity for HR professionals to look at that. Can we now look at different employment, you know, kind of models or employment contracts and work around this, because people, their ambitions, aspirations are going to be there. So we rather address that, rather than confronting them. I think Nathan said exactly the same thing. I'm just putting another dimension that it can be more broad-based. And that's all I had to kind of, come and say. Thank you.
Right. So, I think this has been really wonderful, and I'm so glad it sparked off so much of conversation. Just one last round robins for everyone who's still on the call is to be able to ask each one of you to be able to respond to one simple question in a yes or a no, right? So it's really going to make it a quick round robins for everyone, which is, do you believe that the BAU within HR is so all-consuming that a lot of what we spoke about, we're far way off from that? Do you agree with this? And I want to know that, have we created cumbersome BAU within organizations for HR? The way in which HR conducts its BAU is so overwhelming, or is so complex, perhaps time-consuming, that we don't get a chance, despite knowing, and I'm now talking about the knowing and doing gap, that we don't often get down to doing what it is that we actually know about. So I'm just saying it's been a wonderful conversation. I want to cause reflection around having the courage and the basically the propensity to be able to move beyond BAU, to actually be able to grab all these opportunities that we're talking about that are sitting right there for HR. So we'll do a quick round robin. Tell me whether you agree, disagree, why, and we'll just try and I don't know. Can we try and bring in Kaushik? You want to go first? Do you agree that BAU is too cumbersome within organizations? Give me a yes or no on HR.
I don't think so. I mean,
No?
At least in our organization, no. That's the answer.
Okay.
You want to elaborate on this?
No. I'm just saying, you're saying that it's not, BAU is not in the way of being able to drive
absolutely.
the revamped of the new HR. Yeah.
Yeah.
Try and bring in Nathan. Nathan, what do you think?
It's always difficult to turn a very large ship. So I think we got to be more agile. I think we are miles away from where we are in responding to the tremendous change. We've got miles.
Right. Karmishna?
Yeah, I think so. It is like, what we are doing well, we are implementing it well. So I would say there is yes, no, maybe. So it's neither yes nor a no, but definitely a maybe, because some I see getting implemented well, like the new work model. Then, few other interesting things that I see happening. But yeah, I tend to agree that considering the opportunities that we have, far behind.
All right, great stuff. I will bring in Geeta here. Geeta, would you think that the BAU within organizations can be a challenge?
I agree with Nathan when he said that large organizations like turning a ship. So I would say 80% of the team would be engaged with BAU. They cannot raise their head about that. But even if a 20-30% is engaged in what's next, I think it's good enough to create a critical mass to propel change.
Yeah, great stuff. Anirudh?
I think same sense. I also have, I think we are away from this thing. I'm just wondering that what will be the next, because I think we are now kind of ready to take things, on us, as they are moving along in this dynamic world, but we are away, definitely.
I think I'm going to bring in Chandar, but Chandar, keep it really, really brief. What is your sense? Is the BAU overwhelming, and therefore a lot of what we're talking about, we're kind of some distance away from being able to execute? Chandar, are you there?
Sorry. Yeah, my answer to your question would be in no. So if you ask that time constraint is there, and if you have not to elaborate, my answer in one word would be no.
All right. Okay. All right. Great. I'm just trying to get a perspective here. I'm just wondering, is Deborah still there? Deborah, what's your sense?
I am. Yes.
What do you see?
I think it depends very much on the organization. I think some are ahead of the curve and it would be a yes, and some are definitely a no. So yeah, it depends on where the organization is, and each is different.
Okay. All right. Great stuff. I think with that, we'll try and bring this to a closure. This is such a wide theme, and it's ever so difficult to be able to have so many fantastic minds talk about this in 60 minutes. But thank you for attempting to do that. Thank you for indulging us with all the questions that you attempted answering here. The last one was meant to be a reflection questions for those who are not getting down to the opportunity of these times. And I think on that happy note, thank you everyone for being here. One more time, a big thank you.
Thank you.
To Refine. Refine is India's first and Asia's largest salary on demand platform that has actually enabled this conversation for us here today. So thank you everyone for your time. Thank you for your contributions. Thank you, Karmishna, for joining from en route in a car. And I know, Geeta, you're traveling as well, and you made the time to be able to come in on board. Thank you everyone for making this such a meaningful discussion. Obviously, we look forward to more and look forward very much, very keenly to be able to have you on board. So thank you everyone from the first panel who was still here and the second.
We can't go away really, before saying thank you so much to you.
Yeah.
Big thank you.
Thank you, Sujaya. Very well done.
Thanks, Sujaya. Thanks
Thank
a
you,
lot.
everybody. Bye-bye.
To other
Cheers.
panelists. Thank you.
Take care,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Have a great evening.
Happy
Thank
Diwali.
you. Bye-bye.
Happy Diwali coming up.
Happy Diwali.
Yeah, happy Diwali.
Happy Diwali. Take care. Bye-bye.